Test, testicles, titties, tambourines, test. Yeah. All right. Loading up this Enemy of I demo session for you, Will. I'm going to leave this public while I'm live streaming, so if somebody just happens to catch it, well, good for them. But it's going to be private after that, where only you and I can see it. So, all right. So there's my comp together vocal, and I've took a lot of vocal takes trying to figure this verse intro out. But I'm ahead and, well, let me turn off a few things. So when I'm live streaming in my template, and this is the template I'm talking about. I'm gonna try to expand it and explain kind of what's going on here. Let's turn this off. Okay. All right. So as you'll see, my main master, as I described, is at +10, but all the audio that feeds into it on the main bus. This is a listen bus. This doesn't get mixed down. This is just for measuring things, but this is the main bus, main master. Start off with it at +10. This is at pre-fader, and down here's post-fader. So everything before this is pre-fader, meaning it's not seeing it at +10, it's seeing it at, nominal. And if I play everything real quick, you'll see nothing's clipping.
In the depth of introspection, I found
except for the master bus is clipping a bit, but you really can't hear it. When I live stream on post fader, I'll just do a simple L1 limiter, which, will keep that from happening, even though I really don't hear it.
In the depth of introspection, I found the lessons drowning it.
And then if I turn this on, it will add a little bit of density, but the intention is preserved the way I have things set up, and I'll run through that real quick.
In the depth of introspection, I found the lessons drowning in my own self-reflection. In depression, forced to face the questions.
Now off.
In the depth of introspection.
So it kind of preserves the intention and tightens things up. Now, to start off with, there's a thing called aliasing. And when I'm adding saturation and aggressive limiting, it can create more aliasing. So I do I cut out everything before the, what they call the Nyquist, which at 48K is roughly, divide that in half, is 24K. But Nyquist actually starts to begin, which is, it gets geeky and scientific. I'm not going to bore you with it. And it's kind of hard to explain, but so I go a little bit before that and cut everything that's above human hearing anyhow, so that doesn't become a problem. That's step one on my template here, and I'm gonna go ahead and turn it on and play. And then I have Gullfoss master just doing a little bit, recovery at 12, tame at 16, bias at 0, and I brighten it because it seems like by ear it seems to lose a little bit of apparent brightness, even though it's trying to add brightness. So let's go ahead and turn that on and show what that's doing.
In the depth of introspection, I found the lessons drowning in my own self-reflection.
So it's getting rid of the lows and the highs here are not being affected. So below 120 and above 6K, it's just focusing on the upper and lower mids and mids. Anyhow, that's step one that I've put into my template. Step two, which you could put everything here on just one ozone, but I have it separated into two just cause. So here on ozone, I have dynamics, and these really ain't doing much. These just catch the occasional overshoot of a certain frequency. So if I turn this on and hit play.
In the depth of introspection, I found the lessons drowning in my own self-reflection. In depression.
0.1 attenuation, on the lows.
In the depth of introspection.
On this song, and specifically, there's not enough going on there, transient-wise, to be adjusted.
In the depth of introspection, I found the lessons drowning in my own self.
See what I'm saying? Like, that's just a safeguard. It's not really doing much unless you're really pushing into the mix and got a lot of density to start with. So that's just kind of like a fail-safe. I don't lean on it too much, but it's there to catch some things I want to control. And that's the levels at my gain staging that I like to mix at. to do that with. And the way I gain stage with the plus 10 on the master, I don't think about gain staging. I just do it intuitively. And it also translates, as I've experimented with Atmos, that it's almost at negative 18 at nominal level without the 10 dB plus more times than not. And then Atmos mixing becomes easier and stemming out becomes easier, and all that just kind of takes care of itself. The exciter, this is doing something important. So I'll show this a little bit. I have, to start off with, below 90 hertz, I got this tube doing a little bit. Here, I'll solo it. So with it off, back on. Controlled distortion, adding density, and that creates harmonics that go above that range, and therefore it kind of cuts through smaller speakers psychoacoustically, and you hear things a little bit better. That's kind of the approach I take to that. Now, in the whole, I only have it divided into 3 sections. I could do 4, but I think 3 is enough. Then I have triode for the upper bass, mids, and upper mids. So all that whole region. So
in the depth of introspection, I found the lessons, drowning in my own self-reflection. In the depth of introspection, I found the lessons, drowning in my own self-reflection. In depression, forced to face the questions. If I change direction, is fate still destined?
And if I turn that effect off without adding a little bit of density.
In the depth of introspection, I found the lessons, drowning in my own self-reflection.
Now, it seems more transient without that, but it's about the whole big picture. So when it's not soloed, and I actually made these effects in tandem and did a lot of little adjustments, so I feel like I'm not losing my mixing intention. So, and nothing's being lost, and it's not overwhelming the limiter at the end. So it kind of all works together. By itself, it's not quite so apparent, but this is just going through the steps here. And then, of course, the highs, I'd like to add a little bit of tape saturation to the highs. I feel like it just makes the highs a little bit more crisp. So let's show that. So that's on, here goes off. I'll toggle on and off if you watch my mouse and then turn it on the power button on it. That's just where I got my template set up at. Then I have a vintage limiter, which is not doing a whole lot. It's kind of slower than the main limiter by about half the speed, and it's on a vintage, slower by nature, analog type of emulation to start with. So let's go ahead and show that. That doesn't limit nearly as much as the final. It's just kind of getting some strange peaks.
In the depth of introspection, I found the lessons, drowning in my own.
And the way I mix gain staging wise, it barely does anything, which is what's intended. Then the imager, I feel like I lost a little bit of width in the highs and the mids with everything on together, including the final limiter. So that was adjusted with everything on. I'm not going to bore you with that. And it's also multi-band. So I do a widening differently in the upper bass, lower mids, and upper mids differently than the highs and lows at slightly different points than what the exciter was at, but not pretty similar. That's just where I landed. So that's going into the final limiter, which is this one. And with it on, see this limiter down here really isn't doing anything. It's is set up on the post fader just to catch 0.1 just right before clipping. So it shouldn't affect the sound with it still being on. But yeah, look at the final limiter here on Ozone that I use. Let's make this a little bigger so it's easier to see on your phone screen. All right, so yeah. Now I pull down. I like to have about 0.5 headroom. So that plus 10 on the master with my ceiling at minus 10.5, and I pull down a threshold of 10.7 is to give it a little bit more of a gain, is what that does, to kind of compensate for what may be lost in perceived volume. We're talking about perception, perceived volume, and this is, I got an IRC 5. I like modern mode most of the time. Sometimes I go to transient mode. Most of them I just keep it on. Keep it on modern. 0.3 speed. I add a little bit of extra soft clipping at 20% on low soft clipping. So it's barely doing anything. And then I emphasize the transients. 50%. Got that on. Stereo independence on the transient side is at 75%, and sustain is at 80% on stereo independence. So those are my settings for my template. When I start, I don't touch this until I'm into mastering. Then I just do small touches or small changes. So this is just my starting point, period.
In the depth of introspection, I found the lessons, drowning in my own self-reflection. In depression, forced to face the questions. If I change direction, is fate still destined? Can I reverse regression to chase perfection? To tame aggressions into some sane obsessions? To do the things irrelevance, use a strain with elegance, with that vain embellishment. Can I gain benevolence?
So my goal in my template is to maintain the intention at the individual track and bus level. Like, I don't want drastic changes. I want to mix as I'm as if I'm mastering. And then when I go to mastering, I nitpick and do slight changes, but it puts me in the mindset from the beginning to go after intention. Intention is the most important thing. What is your intention? Maintain it, carve it out, make it work, sidechain things properly, kick the bass, a little bit of sidechain snare to guitar bus, just to kind of slightly dip really quick. Sidechain your vocals, delays, and reverbs, and keep the vocals up front and present, the main vocal, unless it's a background vocal. Then it gets a little murky and creative after that, but there's just some fundamentals that needs to be preserved. And before I go to so that's the mastering chain. It's pretty simple. And it kind of just works with me. I don't feel like I don't use it to get level. Well, I do, but I don't at the same time. So really, if I take out the minus 10, without the mastering chain on, this is the actual level I mix, that the actual individual tracks are coming to nominally.
In the depth of introspection, I found the lessons, drowning in my own self-reflection, in depression.
And as you will see, if I kept it at 0, that's about the industry standard level of mixing before mastering, and you have headroom, and you never clip, and I don't have to do that to check. I know by this pre-master bus here I have set up, which is, I just have an effect for I did a bounce, just ignore that. But on my pre-master, I usually keep it empty until I'm about to master, then I might do a thing or two. But on my pre-master bus, which is where everything feeds into it. If I solo it, you'll hear that.
In the depth of introspection, I found the lesson.
So, as you see there, I could tell what my nominal level is before my mastering bus. And I know that I'm not clipping, and I have nothing to worry about. And the reason that's important, even if you're at 32 or in like Studio One, I'm at 64-bit floating point. So, even if I am quote unquote past nominal 0, I'm not really clipping. That information isn't lost. But some plugins, especially a lot of older Waves plugins that are emulating analog, they don't do well when you push into them too hard. So that's changing over time. A lot of plugins are adjusting for that and becoming internally 32-bit float point or higher. But I'd rather just not have to think about it, and I can grab plugins for what they do flavor wise or tone wise, and keep my gain staging, good, and not ever clipping into a plugin ever, never. So that's the mindset. And then I get my volume here. It's simple. It's dumb, stupid, simple, and it works. I mean, it just works for me. So. All right, before that, my template gets a little bit more complicated on how my workflow works. So, as you see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I didn't number this. That should say 6. Yeah, I just had hit shift there. So 6. 1 API bus. I could probably put notes in here to explain what that is. I can just tap down here and put notes. Like, for instance, drums and bass. There. All right, that kind of explains that. So all my drum bus and my bass is, element instrument bus, whether it's 808s or bass guitar, no matter what it is, synth bass, they feed into here and then they merge into here. And I have the API 2500 doing a thing in the Ozone dynamic, which isn't really doing much. It's just to kind of maintain some balance. I'll show you. Sometimes I break those rules, and sometimes I'll merge other things in with it, which I did in this case. But you can break rules, and I just felt as if it sounded better and to be glued together with the bass and drums, like those little background strings there. But I'll show you. But typically, I start with drums and bass, and sometimes I want other things to glue with it where, the drums and bass kind of affect them perceivably. So that's why it's that way in this mix particular. But usually it's just drums and bass in this bus. Then after that, I feed 1 into 2, as you'll see here, 2 SSL bus. That's where that bus goes. Goes right next door. And then other things merge in. Let's see what's in there. Sometimes guitar will be in there, or different elements will just pop in and out. So everything is feeding into this, feeds into that, and then whatever else I want. If I want to bypass this, I'll just skip the 1 bus and go to the 2 bus. This is the second bus in order of my template, which is an SSL bus. I have SSL comp doing a thing. Barely tickling that needle, going into SSL Fusion Vintage Drive, mixed in slightly, adding density, gluing some more. And that's followed by a transformer, mixed in slightly, doing a thing, gluing a little bit more differently, making things kind of mesh together. I dig it, and if I turn these things off, we're at the second stage here, and let's see how different it sounds. It's not going to be a whole lot different, but these little changes make a big difference in overall scheme of things. You see, it's not night and day, but it does a thing. Then I go into a limiter. I feel like I should limit before I turn these off. I should limit before I go into my final bus. So let's listen to that. At -8 nominal, relatively quick attack and release, 24-bit quantized, no dither, no shaping. L2 Ultra Maximizer, just keeping some peaks in check before I actually start to soft clip, which I prefer to do limiting a little bit first, slightly, then soft clip, then back to other things. So This next bus would be the clip bus, because it's primarily clipping, but it's doing more than that. It starts off again. I'm trying to make sure nothing is, and I have this dip here because the way this bus is set up with the SPL iron, it makes the low end fatter than intended, which is a good thing because it makes it fatter with very mu compression. It's a good thing, but you kind of want to maintain the initial track intent, but you just want to glue it, is my mindset. So I did a little dip here, 27 hertz low shelf. Anything below 10 hertz does not never need to be in the mix. That's just a waste of headroom. And then up here doing the high cut thing, trying to avoid any unwanted aliasing before processing more further. I'm doing the little Pultec trick here, just slightly, ever so slightly. Just one very broad 100 hertz. It just kind of helps focus the low end just slightly, and it also tends to boost it. So I had to pull it down to get the apparent nominal level by ear, and then it goes into an SSL bus comp again. But this is the actual SSL bus comp, not the waves. I have oversampling on because now we're getting more elements, as you'll see here. As you'll see, the guitar is in the mix now, which is already super dense. So light ratio is what I prefer. High thresholds, which is barely catching some random peaks that it detects. That's pretty much it, man, on that plug-in. And then that goes into SPL Iron. Now this is one of my favorite plugins of all time. I have it on my vocal bus. I have it all over mixes, dude. I absolutely love the SPL Iron, and you have slight different flavors. You can go through different channels here. For this, I've chose 3 and 4 for left and right. I need to turn it on and off to kind of show what it does. So let me do that. So it's off now. Let's turn it back on. And if you zoom in, that needle is just barely moving. It's not about so much compression for me with this plugin. It's about being a tone generating box more than anything. And I got it set up the GESI setting. I mean, I've went through all these settings and played with it for hours upon different mixes, and this is just where I like it. And I'll also narrowing the I got a high pass filter side chain of the signal so it doesn't react to the low end. I am narrowing the low end at below 40 hertz to become mono, giving a little bit of stereo width because it seems like it lost a little bit of stereo width without widening it. And I don't even have it at 100%. I have it at 75%, so it's wet dry. But I just like how this mixes in, dude. I love this plugin. And then ignore the tone generator. It was me testing out to outboard gear on Pipeline, which I have disabled for external clipping, but sometimes go to that before I finalize a mix, but it's pretty rare. I prefer just the flat line. Then I have clipping going on, which is the main intent of this bus, is to shave off peaks before it gets limited and keep things a little bit more in control and add more density. Just little additions of density go a long way. It's just giving a little bit of filtering, a little bit of color, a little bit of personality, making things just kind of live in a mix like it's not in the speakers, it's out of the speakers, is the effect, I would say, to a person that can hear it but don't know how to describe it. That's how I would describe it. So let me go ahead and show you what it's doing. And as you can hear, I don't have vocals in any of those chains, you know. And I have other clip options down here too. Anyhow, I usually just rock with this one. It's simple and clean. But anyhow, vocals do not come in from the all vocal bus. So here's the all vocal bus. You see it's still muted when I have this soloed. Because it goes to 6, pre-master. Vocals will bypass all these steps where things slowly get merged together. And I don't even have it going to the mix bus. So I still have a mix bus doing things after all this. And again, the vocals bypass all the musical things. I want the vocals to stand on top of a mix and not be crushed down and limited by it. That's just my mindset of it. And I got that idea years and years ago, listening to like hip hop a lot, and it's helped me a lot in all genres. But people buy a 2-track, decently mixed, limited, already limited stereo beat and rap on it. I was like, man, it's cool how it's not being, the vocals are not being stepped on by the music. And if you mix it right, you can just make it live in it as if it's, you know, a part of it. It's hard to explain. It just makes more sense to me to bypass all the musical, you know, touch-ups and then have the vocals live on their own and merge with the mix right before limiting, the final limiting and, you know, mastering. That's just my mindset. So anyhow, my 5th stage, I had to do this again because of the low end seeming louder with all these on. But I have a little bit of Saturn II, high quality, linear phase, 18%, just barely. The way I see it, it makes the lower mids, the Saturn II, like guitars, for instance, it makes them pop out, because it feels like at this point, without this on, they're being stepped on. I'll just show you. I'll turn it on and off and show you the difference. It's subtle, but I felt it was important enough to add into the template. And then that's followed by a plugin that's not really made for it. Yeah, it says master. You can't just master at this. That's bullshit. But it's kind of cool. I was just experimenting. I think it was like a year and a half ago, and I implemented this into my template. It's just a compressor with a lot of character and color. I just like what it does. It's hard to explain. It's kind of a cheap trick type of plugin made by a famous mixer. It's the Maserati plugin. And I like it, but it's usually made for like trying to control groups easily, for people who just want to turn a few knobs and get something to do, like what I'm doing with individual plugins and my buses, which I would never use this for because it's just one color. But anyhow, for a mixed bus thing, it's cool. I'll turn it on and off and show what it does. It just does a thing, man. I don't know. It's hard to explain. Maybe I should just crush it real quick so you can just see what it does if you misuse it. that was me misusing it and driving into it really hard, which you'd have to compensate by pulling down the output to keep nominal level, which you should keep nominal level once you acquire your gain staging levels. Sometimes you want to acquire it like a vocal. You want to acquire your gain staging. If you record a dry vocal in, you might want to acquire that gain staging after a compression. But once you've established your level gain stage wise to fit into a mix and it sounds like a mix, you should maintain that as you add effects. So that's what I've done with all of this I've shown you. So when I did that, if I wanted that, which I wouldn't, but if I wanted that aggressive distortion that this plugin creates with compression, I would have to compensate on the other end. Like, I'll show you just like this. There, it's roughly gain stage back. So yeah, here's it being abused. As I turn it on and off, you can tell what it's doing to the mix. Now that's abusing it, and that was not my intent. I just wanted to subtly use it, like most of my plugins and my template. That's back to where I had it set. So yeah, there's that. And then that feeds into what I showed you at the beginning of the video. So that is my methodology. So once we get to this pre-master, which sometimes I'll add a little tiny bit of compression or a little bit of EQ and mid-side EQ, like something usually goes here, usually SPL. Where's it at? SPL, what's it called? It's a master, yeah. So SPQ, like I usually use this thing. It's a emulation of hardware mastering EQ. I usually use this to do some small, slight, subtle changes, stereo field stuff. Just like the SPL Iron, it has different channels you can sweep through that are different analog emulations of that piece of hardware, and it kind of can give you a different flavor. Just slight, very slight. You got to have headphones on and be really paying attention to hear it. But yeah, that's what I'll typically do on that bus. So at this point, vocals come into the mix.
In the depth of introspection, I found the lessons, drowning in my own self-reflection. In depression, forced to face the questions. If I change direction, is fate still destined? Can I reverse regression to chase perfection? To tame aggressions into some sane obsessions? To do the things of relevance, use a strain with elegance, without vain embellishment. Can I gain benevolence?
And that's an example of the mix bus template. Now let's go deeper. Let's go to the mix level of things. So this is what I'd call mix busing. Not just a mix bus. I have different stages of mix busing going on, and then master busing, these final two going on, pre-master and main master. So I don't have very many vocals to show in this mix. It's just a demo single vocal, but all my vocals will go into this all vocals bus. So
in the depth of introspection, I found the lessons, drowning in my own self-reflection. In depression, forced.
And that SPL Iron's pretty much set exactly like on my other bus, which makes it seem like it's in the same ballpark as the rest of the mix. And then I have a just a bus compressor too. All my vocals, all my vocal effects will go into the all vocals bus. That means reverbs, delays, everything vocal related.
In the depth of introspection, I found the lessons, drowning in my own self-reflection. In depression, forced to face the questions.
Now I'll turn that little bit of processing off.
In the depth of introspection, I found the lessons, drowning in my own.
See, it's not night and day. You don't lean too much on any sort of processing in the busing stage of things. Now, on the individual vocal level, let's go ahead and go to that since we're talking about vocals. On the individual vocal level, let's turn everything off, and it's going to be wildly different from the track level. So this is that vocal, I believe.
In the depth of introspection, I found the lessons, drowning in my.
Now, look at all that processing. Okay. Now, I record with a lot of headroom for my vocals because I am extremely dynamic. I get really loud. So, and it can clip a mic if you're anywhere close to it. This mic that I'm talking through right now is, as I lean forward, is like an arm length away. It's several feet. So let's turn everything off and just hear the dry signal.
In the depth of introspection.
Well, I forgot to turn off the sends. There's a sends down here. Let's turn those off too. So it is just the dry vocal. There we go.
In the depth of introspection, I found.
Well, shit. I still have sends going on. How is that? Hold up. Why is that? That makes no sense.
In the depth of introspection, I found the lessons, drowning in my own self-reflection. In depression, forced to face the questions. If I change direction, is fate still destined? Can I?
Dry, just the mic. And then I'll gain it up after compression. I'll use the Shep 73, add some color, preamp color. Then I'll go in and DS because I am very sharp on my S's. Add some decapitator, a little bit more color. So at this point, this is what it sounds like.
In the depth of introspection, I found the lessons, drowning in my own self.
So yeah, color. Now I still haven't even really gained it up yet. Vocal Rider, it doesn't do a whole lot. Rouser, a little bit more color. This is where I vocal it up. So this plug-in matches my board. So this is what I hear when I'm monitoring my vocals in the booth. Got some EQ going on, high pass filter, some EQ going on, and a Tube CB compressor, which is one of the only emulations I have of the Tube Tech compressor, which I really like. So this is where I find my gain stage level. I level it up to make it mix level.
In the depth of introspection, I found the lessons, drowning in my own self-reflection. In depression, forced to face the questions.
So yeah, you see that. And then that, at that point, I maintain that apparent nominal level and add a little bit of CLA 2A.
In the depth of introspection, I found the lessons, drowning in my own self-reflection. In depression, forced to face the questions. If I change direction, is fate still destined?
Doing a little bit of thing. But, color, saturation, intention. What I want to bring out in my vocal in a dense mix. That's the idea. Pull tech after that. Bring up the bottoms and top again after, some de-essing and color. So let's bring out some clarity in body.
In the depth of introspection, I found the lessons, drowning in my own self-reflection. In depression, forced to face the questions. If I...
You see, this is, and then I have another de-esser because now the S's are a little bit more sibilant. And I found that this is probably a little too much de-essing last time I listened, but I'll just leave it as it is for now. But let's see what it's doing.
In the depth of introspection, I found the lessons, drowning in my own self-reflection. In depression, forced to face the questions. If I change direction, is fate still destined? Can I reverse regression to chase perfection? To tame aggressions and to...
You can kind of hear that comp edit there. Going into Pro EQ 2, which I found that I was like, man, now I have too much bottom going on. The low mids need a little bit more control, and that's pretty much all I'm doing here.
In the depth of introspection, I found the lessons, drowning in my own self-reflection. In depression, forced to face the questions. If I change direction, is fate still destined? Can I?
And that follows up with the BX console, SSL console stuff. And there's a SSL trick that's kind of known about, where you use the threshold on the compressor and just make it where you're barely touching 3 decibels, and it kind of just evens out things a little bit more with the SSL vibe. So I'll show what that's, and I did a little bit more EQ after the fact, so this is what that's doing.
In the depth of introspection, I found the lessons, drowning in my own self-reflection. In depression, forced to face the questions. If I change direction, is fate still destined? Can I reverse regression to chase perfection? To tame aggressions to...
Yep. So you see that? Then I put a little bit of RVox on it. And I like RVox at the end opposed to the beginning, like a lot of people use it. Kind of use it as a limiter and a final gate if there's any, like, low level, breathing or whatever in between sections that I haven't edited out. I usually try to edit it out before the end of editing a comped vocal, but I feel like it adds a little bit of weight, compression, and limiting, and make sure my nominal levels don't jump out too much. So this is with everything engaged.
In the depth of introspection, I found the lessons, drowning in my own self-reflection. In depression, forced to face the questions. If I change direction, is fate still destined? Can I reverse regression to chase perfection? To tame aggressions into some sane obsessions. To do the things of relevance, use a strain with elegance, without vain embellishment. Can I gain benevolence?
And there's that not greatly done demo vocal in its processing glory. Then I add sins for delay, and I add a little bit of chorus, and that's a whole other deep dive, but let's turn it all on now.
In the depth of introspection, I found the lessons, drowning in my own self-reflection. In depression, forced to face the questions. If I change direction, is fate still destined? Can I reverse regression to chase perfection? To tame aggressions into some sane obsessions. To do the things of relevance, use a strain with elegance, without vain embellishment. Can I gain benevolence?
And that explains the demo vocal, but that's usually kind of the mindset and direction I go with that. And in a mix, you do all these adjustments while listening to the mix, not in solo.
In the depth of introspection, I found the lessons, drowning in my own self-reflection. In depression, forced to face the questions. If I change direction, is fate still destined? Can I reverse regression to chase perfection? To tame aggressions into some sane obsessions. To do the things of relevance, use a strain with elegance, without vain embellishment. Can I gain benevolence?
Yep, so there's that. Let's describe some things further, okay? My guitar bus, which I don't have all my tracks shown right now because they're in folders, and there's over 100 tracks, it gets messy. So on the guitar, look at that again, SPL iron. I like that as like a tone box, man. I just love it. So here's a guitar bus. And that's a nasty ass guitar, which was the intent. Got some widening going on with S1 stereo shuffler into the SPL iron doing its thing, pretty much like the master bus setup. It's not a whole lot different. And then some final EQ stuff, get rid of some issues that are just non-stop, 2K, 4K area, 1K area, 500 hertz area, harmonics going on. I'll turn everything on and off together. By itself and solo, it might sound better without those on, but in the mix, it was an issue. So let's listen to it, the mix on and off.
In the depth of introspection, I found the lessons, drowning in my own self-reflection. In depression, forced to face the questions. If I change direction, is fate still destined? Can I reverse regression to chase perfection? To tame aggressions into some sane obsessions. To do the things of relevance, use a strain with elegance, without vain embellishment. Can I gain benevolence?
Yeah, since we're out of the vocal, explanation. Look at all those takes, man. That's embarrassing. And I've had different edits and writing and stuff, so I'm just demoing. Get rid of the vocal folder. I keep everything organized: drums, percussion, bass and sub, guitars, synth and MIDI stuff. Special Effects, SPFX. Open up guitars, rhythm guitar. Okay, so and as you can see, there's edits there too. Let's just open up the left guitar here, which is pretty simple. It's just Soldano, you know, Neural DSP. I moved some mics around and tweaked some knobs off a preset, and then saved it as my own preset to get that desired nasty honky tone, and then some EQ after the fact. So let's turn off the EQ, you know, just correct things, man. Oh, I have EQ before it too. I was EQing into the amp to avoid, again, that dreaded possible aliasing, because I am an anti-aliasing guy at every stage. Even my vocal chain, that first EQ, I'm trying to cut out frequencies that just it's never heard, and just create aliasing when it's, you know, harmonically added to. Anyhow, let's turn off both these EQs and hear the raw amp. I mean, that's the intent. It's still going through the bus, but whatever. But yeah, so that's, you know, that's the guitar, heavy guitar. Let's go to the chorus section here, which I'm going to mute vocals because those vocals are awful. It needs to be redone. I know you've heard it, but yeah, I don't want nobody else hearing it. So yeah, so the chorus has these clean guitars, which I want you to do some key stuff too that we've talked about. Let's find that guitar. Where's it at? There's heavy rhythm guitars. Let's close the rhythm guitar bus so I can find it easier. Clean guitars. There we go. Pretty self-explanatory. They kind of increase in intensity just slightly as the chorus goes, which we've discussed. At least on this first chorus, I'm wanting to filter out the beat, sing softer the lyrics I've written and demoed, and have like a Rhodes thing that's filtered to kind of build intensity in the chorus, not just jump out at you as the first chorus is. It's too intense to start off with. Maybe the second chorus needs to be that intense to start, but not this first one. So, oh yeah, and I'm going to drop off the rhythm, so we'll play with the rhythm then without. Now without, and I want the rhythm to come in on the second half. I'm going to edit and filter that bass differently, the whole beat, everything's going to be just a lot less intense for that first half. But anyhow, you know, you just organize as you go, process with intent, and try to make things work and play together nicely and fit in its own range. You know, let's go to the drums, which is the North Star of every mix, in my opinion. Which I've bounced out a lot of things, like battery and the stuff I've used for percussion. If we look at the mix, it's pretty simple. I mean, kicks and hats I've put together instead of separating, because I liked how they process together. I'm using the Oxford Inflator for a lot of brightening and tone shaping and clipping after clipper. I get creative with clippers, man. Yeah, there's send effects from other instruments that go back into this and get processed with the kick. Which is not a rule or nothing, that's just what I felt. You just process things with intent. I got the Enigma on the hi-hats, snare and hi-hats, side stick stuff. Drums all together. If I could find the all drum bus, I usually have one. Where's it at? Is it just going through the folder? I think it might just be going through the folder bus, something like that. Yeah, okay. Just creative, man. Just get creative. I mean, this is creative land. Individual tracks, compress, squash, saturate to your heart's content. Just maintain a good gain staging, which I do intuitively with my 10 decibel boosted fucking main channel out and compensated down with the limiter and all that. You know, post or pre-fader. That's my technique. Glue some drums together on the folder or bus level. That's pretty much it, man. That's an overview of how I do things that we discussed on the phone, bro. This video will eventually go private. I don't know if there's anybody watching. I've had a few watches, but I don't think there's any comments. Nobody's saying anything. Nobody gives a shit. Anyhow, I'm gonna hop off here. I hope that gives you a little bit of insight, more of what we discussed, man. Have a good one. Later.